Hi everyone, this is Ellie. So the seasonal hunt event runs from today, either November 29th or 30th, depending on your time zone, to December 13th or 14th, again, depending on your time zone. And I'll have the link to the official announcement in the comments section. So I guess we'll start with the event. It is a little bit confusing. So first of all, it's split into 4 seasons: spring, summer, autumn, winter. Each season corresponds to one male lead, their individual map, and as well as one event store. And each map will drop one type of event shop currency, meaning you need to farm all four season maps to clear out the store. And so spring is Alkaid's map, summer is Lars, autumn is Clarence, and then winter is Ein. And one thing to note is, that's not here, but for fall, I would recommend buying one copy of Clarence's Farewell Reflection because it has the additional drop bonus for the fall season map or for the autumn map. So make sure to do that before you start intensively farming. You can choose the order you want to read this event's main story. I think most people have already chosen in the tutorial phase. And note that this is not changeable and this is different from each male lead's individual map stories, and you can access these individual stories through their corresponding maps, which you can change here. So a reminder is, if you want to match the individual map progression with your event main story progression, then make sure to change the map to the corresponding one. And the reason why this is important is because for the first few days of the event, you get a limited number of these action points that you use to unlock map progression. So if you spend it on one map that's not the one you want to read the story for, then you don't have any more action points for the other male leads or for the other maps. Again, if you're willing to wait a few days before going through them, then this point won't really affect you. And then I guess we'll talk about the gacha. Per usual, we have the rate up choice function I've already used, but it's right here. If you wish for an SR, that one will be guaranteed in the first 10 pull. If you wish for an SSR, it guarantees that the first event SSR you get is the one you chose. And there is a 30% chance you will not get the event SSR first. And so hard pity is at 160 pulls. Again, specific rates are listed in the details here. And so following that, all comments are made from a meta and combat standpoint, and something new is that the text versions for these Illustra guides will be available in our community Discord server, and again, I'll link that in the comments section. So first, if we look at Alkaid's SSR, in general, overall, it is a niche support for dispelling enemies' taunts. It has good self-survivability, but minimal other supportive utility, average base stats, and mediocre ult damage multiplier. So for skill 1, dispel taunt from all enemies and then debuff their attack for 2 turns. And then this is where the niche comes from. The skill already does its job at level 1. And this is also the only Illustra, even counting all released on the CN server, that can dispel all enemies' taunts with a skill. And then if we look at skill 2, buff itself's defense for 2 turns. This is again where most of the self-survivability comes from. And then the ult is single target damage and 2 shields for itself in 2 turns. And this is where some of the self-survivability comes from. The shield amount does increase with additional ult levels, but not significantly. And the ult damage multiplier is pretty mediocre. But again, as a niche support, you wouldn't be expecting this Illustra to do damage. So skill priority-wise, you do not need to raise either skill. Yeah, if you want to invest, 1 more than 2, but you don't really need to. Enlightenment priority is low because the additional levels on the ult only buff self-survivability and a little bit of damage, but again, this Illustra isn't a DPS to begin with. So if you're using this Illustra only for its skill 1, which is the taunt dispel, then you may consider disassembling additional copies if you want. Otherwise, you can stack the additional copies. And then if we look at Lars, it's a decent AoE main DPS that can dispel enemy taunt. It has some additional supportive utility, average base attack, but low base HP and defense, kind of average ult damage multiplier. It works better on manual, which I'll talk about later. So skill 1, buff itself's attack for 2 turns. This somewhat makes up for the average base attack, and then you can coordinate it with the ult for greater damage. And then on auto, the cooldowns will kind of mismatch if you don't have charging Illustras on your team. And then for skill 2, it dispels one enemy's taunt and buffs all Illustra's crit rate for 2 turns. A reminder, only normal attacks can crit, so avoid using this skill right before or when you ult. And then for Illustras to, I guess I'll talk about it a bit later, but actually for Illustras to fully utilize the crit rate buff, it's best to pair it with other Illustras that can buff crit rate and or crit damage. And then for the ult, it's AoE damage and 50% chance for all Illustras to do additional damage for 2 turns. And of note, the 50% chance does not increase with additional levels. And then again, as I mentioned, coordinate this with skill 1 for greater damage. So skill priority is max skill 1, not really necessary to raise skill 2. Enlightenment priority is mid, it's a decent main DPS, but the ult damage multiplier is average, and then the 50% chance on the ult effect doesn't change with additional levels, so you can stack additional copies if you want. And then on your team, place this card in slot number 1 unless you have like Clarence's Cage of Guilt or other more mandatory slot 1 Illustras. And then for the Pictura here, as I mentioned, in my beginner's guide, the meta is to use initial old charge increase Picturas and their resonance sets. This one isn't, so I would not recommend pulling other than for collection purposes. So that is that for the event. I'll be continuing to make videos like this for future events, so please like and subscribe if you found the video helpful. Also, another plug, I'm mostly more active on our community Discord server, and the text versions for SSR guides are generally available on the server.